the chair for this meeting today. And I will be walking through with the agenda items and the discussions for today. Let's start. Can you guys see my screen, the presentation?
Yes, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Michael. First, the acknowledgement of country. HL7 Australia acknowledges and pays respect to the past, present, and future traditional custodians and elders of Australia and the continuation of cultural, spiritual, and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So the agenda for today, we will start with the user business and updates. Then we will go to talk about the AUPS R1 publication approval, which will be presented by Daniel. Then we will have a discussion around the QA.html review. That is, again, Daniel will be walking us through the QA.html review for the AUPS implementation guide. Then a little bit on the what next for the project. Again, that will be Daniel. And then we will end up the meeting with myself talking about the next steps. Usual business. So this is like, first we'll start with the approval of the last meeting. So I'll just share my screen about the last meeting notes as it found in the conference page. Is it visible, the conference page?
Yep, we can see that. And Shelley put a link in the chat as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Shelley. So the last meeting was chaired by Ricardo, and Shelley was helping us with the slide and the meeting agenda. We discussed around the IPS technical errata 2.01 update, and then Heath gave a presentation around the report back from the Connectathon from Rotterdam, and where the different system participated and what was the outcome, the notes from the Connectathon over there, and then Doshi presented basically the AUPS R1 artifact FMM2 upgrade, and the motion was passed. And then Daniel also talked about the next steps and the publication planning for the R1 AUPS. That was kind of the discussion that has happened in the last meeting. I would just like to see is there anyone who would like to motion for this one to be approved?
Danielle, I'm happy to motion approval of the minutes of our last call for AU Patient Summary.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there anyone who can second?
I'm happy to second. Landon Riley.
Thanks, Landon. Before I open up the poll, I just wanted to check if there is any question from anyone. I'll take it as a no. Let me launch the poll.
So I'm a +1 in the chat.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. We have 18 participants. Just waiting for some more votes to come. Sorry, it's 30, not 18. So we've got 9 plus 1 affirmative, no negative, and 0 abstain. Let me share the result. Motion pass.
Sorry, Chauvin, can I just get those numbers from you again?
Sure. So 9 affirmative,
+1
0
in the chat.
negative.
So
Sorry,
10
Jane
affirmative.
affirmative. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Jane affirmative, 0 negative, and 5 abstain.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. All right. And then there's some usual updates. Michael, would you like to provide the usual updates?
I think this might be Danielle, maybe those
Okay,
ones.
Daniel?
I haven't.
Yeah, happy to do that. IPS, we were waiting on IPS 2.0.1 to publish, which is a technical errata release, which doesn't really change much except for, I think, a small amount of the guidance that's been included. And they updated the extensions pack, which is what we were really waiting on. So the extensions pack got updated, and then IPS has published. And they did quite a lot of work to publish that within a time frame that we asked for in Australia, because we said we'd like to publish in early July, so they've done that. So they did a lot of great work around that. But wait, it turns out there is a problem. So, and we're going to cover it in detail a bit later on, because we're going to have to make a call around whether or not we publish now or we wait a bit. And so there's just a little bit of a technical problem with the publish package, and we're working on resolving that with the IPS team and with Graham Grieve around publications. So yeah, that's coming up in a few slides. Oh, sorry, no, go back.
Right.
Because yeah, AU Core R3. So there has been a bunch of work that's been progressed, and I know a lot of people who are involved in the AUPS calls have also been in those calls, which is great because these will trigger AU patient summary changes. This is not a AUPSR1 thing. This is a looking forwards now that we've finished AUPSR1, what is coming up in R2. And so there's a bunch of new profiles. In particular, there's an AU core composition profile that's coming in, and we'll need to look at reconciling with that because one of our principles is that we do conform to both IPS and AU core. There's a new AU core document reference profile, and we'll need to have a look at whether or not we want to include a new profile for that. And then there's a diagnostic report profile in AU Core. And the same thing again, according to our principles, we would automatically trigger a core and a patient a patient summary profile for that. So I've got a little bit more on that coming up later on, and we can have a discussion on if we want to keep the approach we've undertaken in R1. But I think those are what are materially significant updates to us. I don't know if anyone else on the line has any other updates, community or otherwise, that they think are relevant they want to provide. Alrighty, sounds like not. Let's go on. So connectathon tickets are out, which is fantastic. Shelley, can you put the link for the tickets in the chat? Because that is a bit too
That's
hard.
a great link.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. So if you can put the link in the chat, and I think we'll do a Zulip post as well. But they're out and they came out, I believe it was yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's going to be in Brisbane, and it's going to be in August the 25th, and the 26th, which are in our AU Firework Group calendar. But yeah, so they're out, they're available. Could you go next slide, Chauvin?
Sure.
One of the reasons that I wanted to raise this, and we'll also look to put this link in the slide, and actually I don't want to steal your thunder, Heath. Do you want to do a quick walkthrough of this bit?
I can, yes. So the Connectathon part of, that's what it's all about. So the Connectathon in Brisbane, we normally have our tracks around AU Core, e-requesting and Smart App Launch, but this time we're going to have a new track called Connected Care Consumer Journey. And it's related back to a demonstrator that the Department of Health showcased in Canberra last year, where we basically did some um, future gazing to what our health system or connected health system might look like in the future when we've got Health Connect and FHIR working beautifully together, etc. And so we had these nice patient-orientated journeys, or consumer journeys, where we were moving from one provider to the next, and all our health information was connected. So that was very much what an art of what's possible. And what we're looking to do this year is actually turn that into reality as part of this connected care track in Brisbane. So with all the good work that the vendors have been doing and the Spark community with the standards, and the digital agency with its provider directory implementations, etc., we want to try and bring all those together and see how many of those actual consumer journey fragments can we actually implement in reality, and show that this is not just stargazing, that it is becoming reality. So we're looking to an end-to-end experience of patient summary, provider directory, e-requesting, smart forms with chronic condition care management, and we're even getting into some of the population health with bulk FHIR and SQL on FHIR for analytics, etc. So if you are interested in the Connectathon, please go to this additional form to fill out your preference for the track. In particular, if you're interested in the connected care consumer journey track, we would like to start having conversations with you now or soon in the coming weeks, so that we can start to pull together this, because 2 days is actually not too much to actually hack something together. We need to get prepped. We need to work out what we think that we can actually achieve. We need to make connections between vendors, and yeah, it would be great to have you all on board.
Thanks, Sid. Just a quick question, like this link is in addition to the booking links for
The first link was to book your tickets. This link is to nominate your track preferences for the Connectathon. So it's not just about connected care. It's all 4 tracks you can choose. But I'm particularly interested in having people sign up for the connected care one, so that I can reach out to you, so that we can start arranging catch-ups in the coming weeks, starting in June. We're in June, July next year. Next financial year.
I'm not able to see the chat, but I guess Sally, would you mind just posting this link as well?
Yeah, it's there already. Thanks,
Okay,
Shirley.
thank you. For some reason, I'm not able to see the chat. All right, Sparked post.
Yeah, I can talk to this one, Shaven,
Sure.
which I will put in the chat as well. So yeah, season 3 Spark podcast has now dropped. So if you've been following along, there's already been a couple of seasons of this, and there's some pretty interesting topics in here. And season 3 has just dropped, so the first episode of season 3. It's well worth having a look. The season 3 is going to feed in, so you'll see new ones come in the coming weeks. But the first one has dropped. But if you haven't looked at them at all, there is a lot there from the last 2 seasons as well. So well worth a look to have a look at the podcast. Some very interesting topics covered in that. We might jump to the next one too, Shaven. The AU Encounter Record expression of interest is open now as well. Put that in the chat. Oh, put that in the chat. I think we both did anyway. So we've had 2 discovery workshops for Encounter Record. So we're in the face-to-face Spark community workshops we had in Hobart, I think in February, and we had in Brisbane last month. We spent a whole day in the technical group talking about Encounter Records, what they are, what they might be used for, how we might represent them in FHIR. So there's been quite a bit of community interest in that, and we have had some really good conversations to date. So now we're looking to see whether we want to set up a project, a HL7 Australia project under the AU Core Work Group, which would be focused on Encounter Records. So this is an expression of interest. If you're interested in being involved in that and developing the requirements for a FHIR-based representation of Encounter Records, Follow that link, QR code, sign up. It's just an expression of interest, so you kind of end up on the mailing list once we start meetings and look to set up the project. But get yourself registered so you can follow along with that and provide your input.
Thanks, Michael. Shelley has already put that link in the chat.
Thanks.
We just want to make sure that you really don't miss out.
Yeah.
So I think this
AUPS
one
R1
is,
publication, Daniel?
yeah, I think this one is for me. I might share screens now because I think there's lots of slides. So it's going to be, I
Oh,
think, yeah, let me just, so you'll have to stop sharing and then I can click the
yeah.
share button. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Let me actually navigate off a technicals Philip into what we're actually supposed to be doing, which is this one. Okie dokie. Let me know when you can see the pres.
Yeah,
All
we can see
good?
that.
Okie dokie. All right, so this is our original schedule we've been working towards. We have done all our completion of all our change requests. We've done all our AFMM2 requirements. So we are technically up to what we plan to do around publication approval and QA.html. And we'd sort of originally planned to publish on the 8th of July. Though maybe we would go a smidge earlier if we can, because there's a testing event on the 8th of July, and if we're ready to publish, then it would be nice to actually have that available on like the HL7AU reference server. But let's actually then go through like what this all means. So I guess this is another view, a wider view, of what we've been doing for the entire project of where we're basically at the end. So we're at publication point, and we're even going to start talking about our UPSR2 and how we approach that at the end of this meeting. Just quick reminder here, recap, that this is our scope. We did a lot of work, which was really quite impressive. And I can't tell you the number of people when I did like the HL7 International meetings or in person who have expressed real appreciation for the work that's been undertaken in Australia, the care that we have, the quality that we have, and how we're also helping to move forwards what's happening in international spaces. So I just think like we've all done a really fantastic job. So that's been great. So here's what we're up to. Our original schedule. Well, I mean, it's still true on steps. So we've gone through, we've finished our ballot, we've done our AFMM2, the preparation for publication has already happened, we've got a release branch ready to go. So the next step, and the second last step really, is doing the QA.html run through, which is where we check again any new warnings and errors and just confirm that we're happy with how that works. And from there, it then gets approved. Now, it's a bit Schrodinger. It's either going to be the firework group or the TSC who will approve this. The TSC, which is the Technical Steering Committee, is a new governance group in Australia. I think we've mentioned it before, who is in place, and as they build out and approve the new processes, will be the ones to approve this. I believe there's still a form or so to approve for this one, so we'll handle that on the back end. But either way, the next step after our QA.html is to have the governing body over the publication process to confirm that we've met the process requirements and say, yes, you can publish, and then we will publish. So, closer look, QA.html. That's what this meeting is all around. So what I need to run through for you guys is the issue that is present in IPS 201, and then what our QA.html looks like. And then we're going to go to a vote where we talk about some options and what that might look like. Excuse me, I think I'm just going to cough. Okie dokie. So, we're not quite sure why yet, and this has been raised with IPS. There's a chat going on, and we raised it in the meeting earlier this week on Wednesday with the IPS team. But the publication for IPS 201 has two things it shouldn't have in it. So it's got the element not for publication set to true, and that should obviously not be the case because this is a fully approved release publication. The other problem it has is there's a base URL here that is set as like file. I mean, you can read it. I don't need to read it out. What that means though, is it doesn't resolve. And I can show you what I mean by that. So links to IPS 201 from AU Patient Summary, if we go, for example, to one of our profiles, let me just pick that up, and we'll just pick allergy intolerance. And you might see that we have been stating, and we comply with the profile from IPS. So if I click on that, and I just have, and we can wait for it to think about what it's doing, it's going to go to somewhere which does not actually resolve because it's looking for file, which is my local.
That's why it's thinking so long, because it can't find it.
Yeah, pretty much. So that is going to
Yeah.
not resolve. Whereas if the package had been published with what would be the canonical URL, it would resolve. Now, this doesn't just affect us. This affects any jurisdictional patient summary around the world who wants to use IPS 2.0.1. So they're working through how to do that. Fascinating. Maybe I'm using too much bandwidth with all my
You
like
can
screen
see in
sharing.
the bottom left-hand
Yeah, you
corner.
can see
There we
it.
go.
Yeah, like it's
If you
going.
hover over, you can see
Yeah,
the link to the file.
and that won't resolve. So it's yeah. Ooh, blocked. Huh. Okay.
Interesting.
So yeah, there's a bit of a problem there. So I don't know the full extent of what that is like. I think I think I would want to even do some server testing. But that is the issue. It's really just those two fields that somehow got set in the publication process, and we're trying to chase that down with Graham. Um, yeah. So yeah. Um,
Daniel, quick question.
yeah.
Wasn't it reported in the QA.html for the IG?
Only as a warning, not an error. Well, not for not
Right.
for IPS. Not for IPS. So IPS 201 does not have any errors or warnings in its QA.html. I I don't know how this has worked. We're also speaking to the publication manager for HL7 Australia because I've never seen this problem before. Um,
Hmm.
and the publication manager for HL7 Australia, who is Lynn, is unclear on how did this happen. And the publication request, which is like the feed-in into the process for publication at international, is correct. So something's happened. We don't know what. So we need to basically chase down Graham and understand. Well, I guess when is a fix coming? Uh,
You
yeah,
can see all the links here as well. They're all the same. So they're
yeah,
using that. So they're all local links as well. So even this would normally go to the right place within the profile and stuff like that within the IG
yeah,
online as well. I mean, this goes right into the package tarball as well. So if you load up the package file within the tarball, it's that URL's in there. It's like systemic through the whole IPS publication.
yeah. It's just because the base canonical URL somehow got set to that, which looks like an intermediary like staging environment rather than the actual canonical URL. So that's the issue. Um, I will then run through what our QA.html looks like, noting we have shifted to 201. So I'll run through that and then we'll talk about our options for publication. So, congratulations for all of us. There are no new errors or warnings. We have an information message which is saying I can't resolve those file web publication things. So there's a new message there. There's also one other information message that is saying that you don't have an OID yet assigned for any of your profiles. To be quite frank, I don't think that we ever would. I don't know why we would need OIDs, but it's a new thing that is kind of being explored in international. I think it's actually meant for terminology resources, but has been applied accidentally everywhere. Heath?
No idea.
Yeah.
There was a Zillup chat on this today as well, so it's affecting everybody.
Yeah, it is. We've raised it this morning because to just say what is happening here, why are we getting a message about something that is not a FHIR recommendation? But it doesn't actually impact our publication requirements. As a work group, and in particular for the project, we need to accept our errors and warnings. The information is like really broad and is often not applicable to what you're actually doing. So there's no actual governance requirement to like particularly cite and accept those information things. I just thought I would mention it because they are new. If anyone wants to see them, I can go into more detail, but yeah, they're not relevant to us, except for obviously the one that's coming up around the IPS 2.0.1 problem with its URL. So, options. My thought is that we have three options. I will be frank, in order of preference from me. I would suggest considering that we go for conditional approval. As in, we would be that we approve in this call publication of AUPS 100 under the expectation that we would publish at the point at which a fix has been made, whether that is a republication of 201 or they publish at 202, however that needs to happen, and Graham needs to tell us what's going on there, that we go for a conditional approval because we're done. IPS is done. It is just this dependency fix to make everything just like work. What might need to happen though is if out of sync of our meetings, if a new error or warning appears, because we do need agreement from everybody on them, we might actually try to put that in an e-vote and say, look, this new warning appeared and provide the explanation and ask if the group is happy about that. The only reason a new error or warning would appear is because of a tooling enhancement. It wouldn't be anything to do with either of the IGs. So that's option one. This is my preference. Option two is we wait. So we wait until they have fixed it and then we come back into a call and then we do the approval meeting again. Option three is we're calling it publish now, publish later. So we could publish an AUPS 100, but we would do that against the IPS, like the 20, like the older one, because that works. So we would publish AU Patient Summary on R1 against what is IPS's 200. And then we ourselves would need to publish a technical errata release, like a 101, as soon as we have the new IPS version. So there, I think the three options. Comments, questions? Michael?
Daniel, can you just go through again, so the reason why we were waiting for 201 and what the impact is if we did publish against 2 rather than waiting for this fix?
There are two reasons for it. One, there was a technical issue in IPS 200 related to the extensions dependency that was agreed to be fixed because they had to fix themselves against a ballot technical correction release of the extensions pack. So there was a misalignment there, which was triggering a bunch of warnings and errors in all the downstream specifications that were not real. The other reason is that with us looking to conform to AU Core and IPS, that does actually mean for us that we want the first release of IPS, or in fact we've committed to it, to be against the second release of IPS. These minor patch versions are just increments on that. So when a 2.0 1 is fixed or a 2.02 comes out, we do need to realign to that. That is part of our commitment on conforming to the IPS release, and we do need to have that as part of our dependency list.
Okay, so that's why your preference is about waiting for the 201 is because if we publish against 2, we're kind of behind, and we want to be at the latest IPS as part of this publication round.
Yeah, we will have to uprev if we publish against 200.
So
Like
if we
will
go
have
against 2, regardless, we have to go at some point to 201 in the near future, as soon as it's ready. So it's really just the if there's a burning desire to get it out now, we've got the option to go against 2, but we still have to go to 201 as soon as it's ready.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess some of these options could be put better in almost a decision-making way. This first one means as long as the only change between now and then is they've fixed this, then this work group call for patient summary can approve and say we're happy to proceed with publication under the understanding that the only difference between what we've seen and now is that fixes in. We could say no, we're not satisfied in providing a conditional approval and actually want to wait for the fix and then have a meeting on it. The third is if there is some reason, and maybe there is, and maybe there are for implementers on the line, that they really need an AUPS 100, noting, of course, there will be an uprev, then we could look at a publish now, publish later, if that's actually of use to the community. So I think that's the framing.
Danielle, in the chat,
Yeah.
Chris Moser has asked if there was a timeline.
No. For the IPS 201 fix, I assume it will be soon, but I haven't managed to actually track down Graham. We only discussed this on Wednesday, so this is a pretty new development. And I think Graham's at a conference, so we need to find some time with him. But I think it would be within a couple of weeks.
There's no changes to IPS. It's really just technical
Correct.
fix and rebuild it, publish it.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I agree with him. It's like a tooling issue, not really a particular specification issue.
Yeah, and if anything, like if you go to the build.fire.org site, it works fine, but it's when they go through the publication. So there's an extra step after, other than the CD builds that come out automatically with the latest version. When they turn it into a publication, they got to do a whole heap of URL rewrites, and it's obviously something's going to skew there with those URL rewrites. So it's just a tooling issue, CI/CD problem. It'll get fixed, as Danielle. It comes down to a particular person that needs to have time available, and that person's very busy.
Mm.
So we can't say anything, but it could be soon, it could be later.
Well, I think I would come back to this group and say, if we don't have a response within a couple of weeks, then we need to maybe reconsider these decisions. Like it should be a quick response to try to look at correcting that, which we could put the conditional approval on both this, but also the expectation that we would be clear on a acceptable time frame within 2 weeks. Sorry, Heath, go for it.
No, we have the testing event, so that's probably also a kind of a date that we might want to be thinking about stuff. So we need a publication of sorts. So we kind of need to make a decision on whether we want a snapshot by then. We were hoping to obviously have the real thing, but yeah, so I feel that there is a date that we need something by before we have to put into contingencies, at least for the testing event.
Well, there is no normative difference. So I discussed that with Dushi, our IG editor, this morning. There is no normative difference between the snapshot we took to Rotterdam and this one, except for the dependency. That's it.
Right. Except for the dependency.
Yeah. So if we weren't happy to publish with what I frankly am uncertain of what servers and everything will do with that attempt at a resolution link, if we wanted to stick on a stable, actual like profile content with all our
Just
terminology and everything else, let's keep the Rotterdam snapshot, frankly.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
I don't
makes
see an
sense to
issue
me.
with that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
I personally, I don't think there's other than the testing event, which I'm now feel like just using what we currently have deployed from Rotterdam. I don't see like a time frame that is driving this. I think personally we should just wait, but I think I would be happy with a sort of a conditional approval that however long it takes, we just hold off until it's fixed. Because as I said, I personally just think it's a technical glitch which will get resolved. It's just a matter of when.
Hmm. Are there any other comments or questions from people?
I was just,
Daniel, go
Yeah.
ahead, Sean.
yeah, I was just thinking like whether we need a poll, Daniel, for this one. Or would you like to motion for a poll?
Oh, yes, definitely. Now, what we'd prepared earlier, I think, was a vote for like pick your preference, which we can do, or I can just motion for conditional approval. I'm happy with either approach. Maybe we just put up the poll for like what option are you happy with? Could you go to that? Is that poll available in Zoom, I think?
Yeah, I
Could
think it's
be.
available. Yeah,
Can you
and yeah, just double checking.
see it, Sean? I can launch it if you can't.
Yeah, let me just quickly check. Yeah, I think there's a poll available. Anyone would like to second for me to launch the poll?
I
Oh
think
no,
we're
we
just
don't
going to
need to
launch the
yet.
poll.
It's not a
Just
Okay,
to,
motion, just poll.
okay.
I think post poll will motion.
So this is just a straw man. Is that what?
Yeah, it's a straw man to just see if people are comfortable, I guess, with what we've talked about with what is, I guess, my preference around the conditional approval. Slash, if someone has any other ideas, we've got an option there for other, and I'd be happy to hear about those if someone's got a different suggestion.
All right. On the count of three, I will end the poll. 3, 2, 1. And share this result. So we have 10 voted on conditional approval, 3 on wait for IPS fix, 1 for publish AUPS 1.0.0 down. There was no other, and I have no preference. 6 people voted for I have no preference.
Okay, if the person who voted the publish now, publish later would like to talk to their need, I'm happy to consider that.
Hi, Daniel. It's Vince here. I don't think there's a real need. It's just that I think that it would be good to get that out there before Connectathon, and that would seem to be a way to do it as long as we let people know that there is an issue.
Are you talking August or the test event in July?
Just a July.
Mhm.
I don't feel strongly about it. If the conditional approval is what the majority think, I'm happy to go with that.
I feel like it's going to get fixed, but sooner than later. But yeah, there's no guarantees.
So what if, because my thought was conditional approval also includes us being really clear on a reasonable time frame within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think we need that.
Um, and
What do we do if that doesn't happen?
then we meet in 2 weeks' time and we talk about what the next step is.
Okay, I'm happy if we've got a fixed time frame that we're waiting for. Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Um,
So in
sorry, Danielle, I was just
please
going to
go,
say,
Michael.
I think the advantage of conditional approval over wait for the fix is essentially what we're going to do now is if we pick one, is we'll approve it now in this meeting, and as soon as the fix is available, we have authority to publish, right? So this group has gone, you're good to publish as soon as the fix is available. The wait for the IPS fix is I think we would have to have that other call to get the approval. Is that right, Danielle?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So the conditional basis says we're happy as soon as the fix is ready, do it, publish it.
And there was something about an e-vote, which I think was just in case there was new warnings that pop up in the meantime, because they do, um, that we also have to resolve. So there's that other caveat around that, if I understand that correctly, Danielle.
Yeah, that's correct. That is covering our bases that if upon correction we discover some new error or warning, and we must agree as a work group on of the errors or warnings, then we would need to have a vote on that. I believe we could do an e-vote, but that also allows people, for those of you who haven't gone through an e-vote before, there's an option you can tick which says refer to telecon, which says, I actually want to talk about this, which would take it to the next meeting.
And these warnings we're talking about are completely unrelated to this particular issue, or could be like this OID example that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. So in that case, I think I'll go ahead and make the motion. So I will motion the conditional approval on the understanding that that includes the IPS fix and that we would need to address new errors or warnings, and that there's an expectation that we have a timeline within 2 weeks. Otherwise, we come back. I realize that's a long motion, Shelley, but we have a transcript. So that's my motion.
Is there anyone who would like to second, please?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sid. All right. And before I launch the poll, any question? I'll take it as no.
Yes,
Sure.
it's Chris here. I just wanted to add in that list of conditions would include that there was no additional content or changes.
100%. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's purely about the dependency being or the publication of 2.0.1 just being fixed. So it's just the canonical URL update is all we are expecting.
Thanks, Daniel.
Okay, shall we put forward the poll for current motion?
Yep, sure. All right. On the count of three, I'll stop the poll.
I'm +1 in the chat as well.
Sure. So I've got 18 affirmative and 1 in the chat, so 19 affirmative, 0 negative, and 4 abstain. Motion passed.
Alrighty. So with that conditional approval in place, I think we will take some of that to Firework Group /TSC with the conditional approval and hope and kind of work with them to get their agreement on the conditional approval. And also work with the HL7 International Publication team and the IPS team to see that we can get this resolved as fast as we can. So, what is next? Rightio. So, what I was thinking is, okay, A, I'd been thinking we could take a break. But B, I think we need to schedule the next fortnightly call as at least a placeholder, so that we can handle any of the publication things that might come out of talking with the international team and what those timelines are, and then potentially revisit whether or not we do need to do the publish now, publish later pathway. So I guess there's two topics there. And then I wanted to talk about AUPSR2. So I'll just finish through this slide and then let's open it up for a discussion because I think this is where we need to have a good chat together. So I had thought that it would be a good idea if we borrowed from what AUCDI has done and the AU Core project with the community pictures, and putting those into a Spark face-to-face. I think if we want to do that, then our next option for doing it is, I think, the November Sparked face-to-face. I honestly don't remember the location. I don't know if anyone on the line from Sparked remembers where November will be.
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Okay. Oh, well, no, that's pretty good. So there would be a November Sparked face-to-face, and we could do where we put out the opportunity for the community to indicate what they're interested in having be completed in the second release of Patient Summary. We've made some particular scoping decisions and also some decisions in our timeline because we're aware that there's all sorts of like national infrastructure things going on, that we sort of scoped out of R1 to make sure that we didn't kind of like jump ahead of where we could be. And so my other thought around that was that we could then look to restart the calls. So we maybe have at least 2 calls coming in November to sort of discuss and plan the second release of Patient Summary, which would need to cover off things like what's new in the community, and that would also include AUCDI if there's any new AUPS elements. What's new in national infrastructure? We might need something from the agency. We might need a presentation from the Department of Health. Have a look at what else has been going on with IPS and what is the International Fire Clinical Document Spec. Talk about some of our maybe looking at release timeframes and any sort of potential release scope. So that was kind of what I think we could do. But I did also, so I just want to come back to this. What are people's thoughts on taking a break for a few weeks or what would be a couple of months? Do we want to keep talking together every fortnight, or are we all like, yeah, let's take a break for a while? Okay, silence. Maybe put your hand up if you think that we should take a break in between R1 and R2 on the meeting schedule. Use the Zoom reactions.
All right, I missed that. What are we thumbs up again for?
You're thumbs upping for taking a break in
Oh, yeah.
between the R1 and R2 meeting schedule.
Yep. I think also the next one in November is in Sydney, not Melbourne. Probably doesn't matter for the actual timing.
Yep, I've lost my reactions button. I am thumbs up, but obviously not physically. So people have not kept their thumbs up. What, Chauvin, were you watching? Did we get a count of that? Maybe
Sorry,
could
no, I
people do it
think,
again?
yeah, please.
So maybe hands up rather than
Hands,
thumbs
Hands
up.
up,
hands up.
hands
Yeah,
up.
hands
Oh,
up,
yeah, you know,
lots
sorry, you're
better.
right. Hands up. Let's do hands up. You're right, because that fades.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So what's our count of that?
14. Hands up,
Okay.
and including me, it will be 15. I'll also put hands up for this.
So can you put your hands down, please? Okay, now hands up. So hand up. Who wants to keep going with the fortnightly calls? Without a month or two's break in between R1 and R2. So put your hand up using the Zoom reactions if that's what you'd like to do.
There is no hand up as yet.
All right. Well, I think that's clear. Let's take a break then. I think everybody else kind of abstains and are like, you do you. Okay, so
Yep.
go Heath. Sorry, your hand's up now.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I don't know when an appropriate place to ask it, but I want to ask about interest in ongoing patient summary tracks at the connectathons and the like. So I don't know if that's worth a conversation a bit, just for planning ahead. I know, it's not, we've dropped it as a track because of the connected care one this time around, but it's whether the community has an appetite for ongoing track around that is dedicated to patient summary. I guess is what I would like to ask.
I have a comment on that. I think the upcoming Connectathon in August is where we've dropped the AUPS track because, as you've said, the Connected Care has a patient summary kind of inclusion in it.
Mm.
Now, we wouldn't have started R2 at that point, but if we start R2 with restarting calls in October and looking to November, then I think we would be restarting the AU patient summary tracks in December because it would be about the second release. I
I
don't
get,
like, yeah.
I guess I've got a slightly different perspective that if this is the year of implementation, then may want to support those that are implementing through connectathons.
Which means that you would like an August track?
No, I'm not saying that.
So what you're saying is you'd like to
I'm actually
support
thinking for maybe
people.
for December, maybe
Mm,
with that bringing back a track if there is some appetite. But if we're not meeting again until later, then it's
August, October.
hard to sort of plan for that in December if we're not meeting until October. So again, just maybe a gauge from the community whether people are interested in participating in a dedicated patient summary track in December. Any comments would be fine. But if there's no comments, I'll drop it.
Possibly, Heath. My resourcing for my teams to do it technically is quite limited, so I have to get way advanced notice and get lots of people to fly, etc., as you'll see in July. So I guess I would say is don't plan it based on my acceptance, but if it was there, since that's enough lead time, I would at least attempt to try and be a participant.
Yeah, but again, I sort of think that the connected care stuff might be the ongoing one going forward, and as Danielle said, it's patient summary would always be part of that. Um,
I think it goes Michael and then me because I've lost my ability to put my hand up.
I was just going to suggest that, I mean, we will have time when we um, join in October. I think there's also the opportunity for feedback at the next Connectathon to see how the connected care one goes. So I think the fact that there's not necessarily a huge amount of interest here today doesn't mean we should discount it. But I think we see how the next Connectathon goes. We sort of go back to the community and see where the interest lies for the one after that as we lead into it.
So my comment is related to that. I kind of think that people are graduating out of the I can build it, I can share it, which is incredibly foundationally important. But then, like, once you've done that, where do you go? And that's the connected care track. But I think that we should always have a facility where people who are coming into FHIR who want to build out or use patient summary, but they just want to focus on like the real specifics, like I've not built one before. I do think that we should be offering like that opportunity, and I think that's what the AUPS track does. I'm kind of envisioning that the connected care track is like a significantly higher level of maturity for a number of implementations who have been building out patient summaries and who are looking at how do they use them in particular workflows or to like drive out totally new scenarios. But the new kind of like developers coming in to go, I want to actually learn what is this dollar summary thing. I think we need to keep those. They're almost like 101 tracks is kind of what I'd been thinking. And so I think we should do that in December.
okay, thank you.
So do we need to vote on this? I mean, I've put this forward and it seems like people like we've done a hand up sort of thing where we're going like, let's take a break. I thought October would give us a couple of calls and November doing community pitches, and it seems like people are pretty cool with that. And then yes, I guess December would be an AUPS specific track. And I think what I've heard from HL7AU is also that the connected care track will continue beyond this, just like the August connectathon, like it will keep going. Um, does this, are there any objections to this? Are people okay with us with this being kind of like our approach now? Okay, I'm seeing a few thumbs
Yeah.
up. All right.
Uh,
So, yeah, sorry.
there's a question in the chat, Daniel, from
Oh,
you.
we missed it.
As a
I
new
missed it.
person
What does it
participant, I
say?
would like to welcome one-on-ones.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. Excellent. So, yeah, we should, yes, good. Keep that going.
Cool.
All right. So let's kind of plan that out. So we'll definitely schedule the next fortnightly call because we may have publication things to handle. Depends on how the IPS 201 thing is handled. If we don't need it, we can cancel it. Otherwise, let's plan to start back up in October and look to come together in Melbourne for November for community pitches around, well, what additional are we really looking at? There's a whole number of big topics that we did not deal with in R1 that I know several people have spoken to me about. So we can see what comes out of it. All right. Before we finish, oh no, are we almost at finishing time? Hang on, how long do we have?
I think we have till 11:30.
11:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
11:30?
Yep. So we have half an hour.
Oh, cool. Okay, we have time to do this then. So remember what I was talking about before about AU Patient Summary, and there are new profiles in AU Core. So we have, I'll just go to it actually, let me move forwards. We have Patient Summary profile design principles that have stood us in good stead. Um, and they are around that we conform to both IPS and AU Core profiles when they're both available. That this means that any of our references validate against the AUPS profile where possible, um, and that we have rules around the value sets. Now, this is in much more detail in the IG in and of itself in AU Patient Summary. I just wanted to just recap quickly for people that we have a set of foundational profile design principles. And the reason I'm bringing that up is we have had an agreement that where there is both an AU core and an IPS profile, that we would be that we approve for the IG editors to trigger a new profile in AUPS, applying those profile design principles, put it as just draft, and then we schedule profile walkthroughs. And I'm asking for confirmation as to whether or not we're happy to continue to do that in AU Patient Summary R2. And the reason I ask that is because very soon we are going to have two new AU Core profiles that would automatically trigger a sort of a baseline draft AU Patient Summary profile that we would then work off of. And I wanted to ask the group today to vote to confirm if they're happy to proceed with that. Now, I'm happy to go into much more detail because I realized that was very high level and very fast. So, thoughts, questions, what would you like me to go into more detail on? Heath, do you want to comment?
I'm trying to process myself.
Yes. What if it is?
Okay, let me slow it down. So, we agreed before we did any of our draft profiles that one of the ways to proceed was because AU Patient Summary is going to conform to AU Core and IPS, we would provide to this call a draft profile that just did both according to our agreed principles, and then do a walkthrough based on what that looks like. And so the IG editors would follow our standard approach, which is in, let me find AUPS. Follow our standard approach, put a draft profile in the second release. So this isn't about R1 anymore. This is just talking about the next release. So we have a whole section on how do we do these things. Here we go. We have our design principles in much more detail, but perhaps this diagram is better. But we would only do this every time there is both an IPS profile and an AU Core profile available. With AU Core inserting some new profiles, we now have the opportunity to profile things in AU Patient Summary where our references have only been to IPS. So for example, sorry, I'll get to you in a second, Michael.
Yeah, no rush.
We have a reference to Diagnostic Report IPS profile, and that is because we have never had an AU Core Diagnostic Report profile. To continue conforming to both AU Core and IPS, we need an AU Patient Summary profile. So we kind of agreed on this sort of initial approach, which said the first step is to actually do a draft profile in Patient Summary that met both of the requirements, and then schedule a walkthrough so that we could go through and look at what does that mean? Are we happy with all of those requirements? Is there anything else we have to do? So that's the approach that I'm talking about. Go for it, Michael.
I wonder if you're able to show that in the context of IPS, just to give us that context of where these new things are. You have an IPS diagram that shows
Do
it's
I?
probably in IPS. It's probably in IPS
Oh,
itself.
I think I know what you're talking about. This sections diagram.
Yeah, that
hang on.
sections.
This one?
Yeah, that thing. Yeah.
So, it would add to our results section, where at the moment we reference the IPS profile because there was no AU Core profile, we did not, following our principles, we did not do a localized profile that included both our local requirements and the international requirements. With an AU Core profile coming, we now have the opportunity to do that. Heath.
Okay, so R1 is based on AU Core 2, correct?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
when our R3 is published, we already have our principles. I just think, I mean, obviously we need to get approval of the change, but other than that, I think it's really just we're following the principles. We're going to upgrade to R3. Even that is a decision that community probably needs to make, that we're going to upgrade to AU Core R3, and then we can apply these principles and update all the necessary stuff and then just get approval of these changes. So I'm not exactly sure what you're proposing or asking today, but
What
for
I'm
me,
proposing is
it's
that,
just that
sorry, no, you go.
there is work that can be done, but I think it's sort of work that can be quite preemptive based on principles that have already been agreed and then just final sign off by the community.
I would say yes, but it's a bit more in depth than final sign off. Like we did spend entire meetings walking through what the new things are, which would include the confirmation that we are going up to AU Core R3. So I wanted to,
Which would be part of the approval, I guess is what I'm
it
saying. We
would,
obviously
yeah.
walked through it to get the approval, but I think we can do all that work preemptively to, when I say we sparked, to get to the point of basically bringing it back to the community for approval, and the
Yeah.
necessary walkthroughs to enable that.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, whether that's done in October or later, it depends on workloads and et cetera. But I think I think it's just a no-brainer for me. It's just the main decision is to upgrade to R3 and then everything else follows.
I mean, I do agree with you. We do like to, every time we move a release forwards, we just want to confirm that the approach that we've been taking all along, we're still happy for that to be the current like in situ approach. And that was really all I wanted to do was to confirm that that we were happy on this call for like the early R2 stuff to be exactly how we'd approached Patient Summary R1 with all of those decision points you called about. Like all of these will go through work group meetings. And I just wanted to confirm that we're still happy to continue on with this approach to the early draft profiling. Does anyone else have any questions? Should I do a like hands up who's confused? Okay, if otherwise, I'd like to motion that we continue on with the R1 approach to applying the AUPS profile design principles and submitting draft profiles into AUPS R2.
Thanks, Daniel. Is there anyone who would like to second the motion?
Yeah, I will, Chris Moser.
Thanks, Grace. Any question before I launch the poll?
Yeah, he stands up.
Yep.
I'm just thinking that composition probably is in that list as well, even though it's an existing AUPS, that there will be a change to composition because of the new core composition.
I think we have to handle that as change requests. I think we have to handle that as a JIRA specifically rather than initial draft. I did consider that, but that would be my preferred approach.
Yeah, okay. So that will be a different approach because it's an existing patient summary profile. We would have to agree to that specific change
I think
independently of
so.
this automated sort of preemptive principle. Yep, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sid. What would be your vote, Michael?
In the chat.
Three, I will start the poll. 3, 2, 1. So we have got 11 affirmative and one in chat, so 12 affirmative, 0 negative, and 6 abstain. The motion passed.
Okay. Well, I think that's everything I have. No, it is. Yes. I think that's everything.
Perfect. I think that concludes the meeting for today, unless anybody have any other questions or anything to discuss.
I guess I just wanted to say again, like, and I can't do reactions or I would do some sort of like Giphy explosion. That the work by this sort of AUPS call in Australia has been really amazing and is recognized kind of worldwide for the work that they're doing. So thanks again for everyone who comes to all the calls or any of the calls and who provides any of the feedback. And who goes to any of the testing events, has the confluence. Whether you, I think it's really been amazing. So thank you, everyone.
Keep has a hand up.
Yeah, I just want to extend that further and say there's a lot of people on this call today that have been involved as well. So thank you to those as well. And those that just come to like connectathons, etc., that are perhaps not always coming to these calls either. There has been a lot of hard work by vendors implementing this that has actually enabled us and given us the confidence to actually approve the levels of maturity around these profiles as well. And that there are IPS calls once a fortnight that are Australian time zone almost friendly, if you want to continue your involvement at the international level. So, and I've actually appreciated it having the Australian support over the last few months while we've been going through some tricky topics with the international community.
Peter, you have your hands up? Thanks, Ed.
Sorry. It's Vince, actually. I've got the wrong name on this. Firstly, I wanted to just repeat those congratulations, but direct it back at the leadership. I think Daniel and Heath and the other leaders have done a really amazing job with taking this process forward and keeping alignment with the international work, which is challenging. So thank you for taking this forward in a really inclusive and positive manner. I did wonder whether we have a date for the proposed meeting in Melbourne in November. And I was also wondering if Heath could put the link to the international IPS meeting in the chat for everybody. So it might be difficult for some to find it on the international website.
Yeah, so Dushi has been sending out invites. Did you get the invite to this week's one on Wednesday morning events, or are you not on the list?
I don't think I'm on the list, no.
So I don't know what list that got sent to. But otherwise,
I got the invite after I'd finished for the day and didn't realize it was on so early. Didn't see it till I'd logged on the next morning.
So 7 o'clock in Sydney time.
So you want the link to the a calendar entry? Oh, someone's doing that already.
Great.
Well, there might be. So there's two ways to get to it. I just popped this in the chat. HL7 International Con Calls lists every single international call that's happening, including the international call with Australia. And then the team doing Australian Patient Summary tries to send out specific invites to that call. So there are other ones that happen with like America that are at, well, for me, awful times. What are they, like 2 a.m. or something? That I don't go to. So you can find everything via HL7 con calls, but we will try to send those out, and they should be across a mailing list for anyone who's signed up to Patient Summary. And to sign up through Patient Summary, you have to do it off the Sparked registration. Let me see if I can put that in the list. If that's fallen off for you, which it might have, depending on if you've changed like emails or something, there's so there's this form, which is how you say, I want to be on the mailing list for different things. And if you do that for AU Patient Summary, it's all automated too. So I don't get to see your emails, neither does anyone at Sparked. Then you'll receive the meeting invites for anything we're sending out off that mailing list.
It's also a new calendar. I know there's this usual FHIR working group calendar on Confluence. But there's a new one that Brett's set up with the new scheduling system, the Microsoft one. Have you got that handy?
Using I do, not that anyone else can access it besides a few people, but that runs off the mailing lists.
Now, there's one on Confluence that
Yeah,
links
I
to that.
know. That's a replication. So the way those invites get sent out are off the mailing list. Oh, I'm not logged in, so I won't be able to see it.
We'll find a way to get it to you, Vince. It's a bit convoluted at the moment.
Well, the only way to get it is to be on a mailing list, and the only way you get
I
the
can look it up.
AUPS invites is off that Spark registration form, which is then automatically fed into the HL7AU mailing list.
Yeah, I can look it up on the HL7 concourse site on the international co-chair, but others might find that not possible. Do we have a date for the Melbourne meeting in November?
Shelley, do you have that accessible?
So November is actually in Sydney, not Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah, the next CDG is next month in Melbourne. The tentative dates I can see are the 25th and 26th of November.
Thank you.
I think this is what you're talking about, Heath.
That's the one. Because that's actually where all of the or a lot of the work group meetings are setting up at the moment. So I think the one, yeah, you can see on the 24th there, the morning. There's two meetings on the 24th. One was the FHIR working group meeting and then the one before that was the IPS one. So the HL7 con call one, not there on the 24th. So that was created by Dushi, and there's not one for next fortnight yet, but Dushi's kind of set a precedent now.
We didn't create it because part of it comes back to this call on whether or not. I think I had some reservations on whether or not I would continue to send those out to all of the AUPS list, even though we're not really discussing AUPS R2 yet. I guess that's a interesting question. Maybe could we do a hands up check there? Like, who would prefer to have us at the AUPS project send out the invites so that you get those in your calendar for the fortnightly IPS calls, or would you prefer to get them yourself or just be aware that these calls are happening? So now that's for several options. So let me clarify what the hands up is. Do you want emails being sent out for Wednesday, 7 a.m. fortnightly, which is the Australian time for the IPS calls? Could you maybe do a hands up in Zoom?
Free hands up.
I would put my hand up, but I've lost reaction.
Okay.
Heath, you're not interested?
Well, I'm on it anyway, so it's more for the community whether they're interested. I mean, we're not explicitly talking, we're talking international stuff now, we're not talking Australian stuff. So it is perhaps less of an interest to this group at this stage.
It will
Maybe
be
I
for
see.
R2 when we lead into R2, right? Where's it going?
Possibly.
Like, as in, and yeah, us following that lead.
I agree. I don't know how far away IPS 3 is. One of the things that just recently got brought up is an agreement around how do you, um, do things around security and where you're actually indicating that a particular section has content that's been redacted and agreeing on that kind of content. So there are continuing conversations at international that will eventually surface into our specification. And I think it's about whether or not the community in Australia wants to stay, I guess, stay in lockstep with what's happening in international that will affect us, be able to change some of that, and therefore be able to shape what's coming into AUPS R2. So I think that's kind of what the question is about.
I mean, another channel we can use so that it's not so invasive is Zulip. So, but that does not seem to get the same response as email. So, if you are, like Chris has indicated, very interested, and obviously Eliza, etc., that perhaps just keep watching the channels on Zulip. I've also stopped announcing the meetings on Zulip, but I can reinstate that if we're not having the email sent out. And that's through the Australian channels. So yeah, I will start a thread there too. That's the one. So perhaps Chris and I know that Eliza's already on Zulip, but Chris, if you're not, maybe get onto Zulip, keep a check on it, make sure you got your notifications to email, those sorts of things. That way you can see things that are being announced that way. That way we're not having to send stuff out through email to everyone, which goes to a lot of people, by the way. So we're talking multiple hundreds of people will receive this email. One final comment, I guess, on what is happening internationally. There is a IPS coordination committee, which is basically a group of government organizations that are interested in IPS. And then there's kind of a technical tiger team that is working underneath that at the moment, that is looking at how do we internationalize implementations of IPS and looking at the sorts of things that are necessary for us to get a true exchangeable international patient summary when we've got jurisdictions doing various variants of IPS around the world. And what does that mean? So even things like a glossary, for example, what does it mean to be compatible? What does it mean to be compliant? What does it mean to be conformant? What do those terms even mean? And then we're looking at things like how do we identify a IPS that has come from Australia versus one that's come from the US, one that's come from Europe, and what are the consequences of that fact. So this Tiger team is something that I've been attending on a semi-regular basis and so there's some really useful stuff that's happening there as well. So obviously we'll bring back anything that is significant. But there is definitely a lot of interest in this space at the moment to try and make sure that this is truly international.
Thanks, Ed. If there is no other question or comments, then I'd like to conclude the call today.
Thanks, Shervin.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
for
Shervin. Did a good job.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Chauvin.
Anyone?
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.